seconded, okay. So I have a motion on the floor. There's a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Under my chairman's update. You said, and hopes they will be positive there. Recently, I said, they attended the BOE orientation recently and hopes they will be positive additions to the group. I said I'm sure they would be positive. I don't hope they would be. I know they'll be positive additions to the group. Other than that, that's a whole.
Right, I didn't feel insulted.
Okay, other than that, I have nothing to say. You know. Okay. All right, no other discussion? Okay, then I'm gonna put the motion forward as amended, if you will, or the minutes as amended. All in favor of accepting the minutes as amended? Say aye.
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 Oh, that's right, I can't tell you're on there. All right, any opposition, say no. Hearing none, any abstentions? Nobody of that, I'm sorry. All right. The minutes have been accepted. All right, subcommittee update, Heather.
Yeah, so we just had one just before this meeting. Many of the people here were already there. But the brief discussion was talking about some old business. We talked about senior night and promoting those nights, advertising banners for spring sports. We discussed that we wanted to move forward with doing the second annual leadership roundtable with Turtle Lot. That is scheduled for March 15th, where select groups of people from the committee as well as from the town of Townsend will present. And students will likewise present to us about town business, all the commissions and departments and all of that. We did talk about the upcoming budget season and some communications brainstorming to discuss that we would like to see the town survey happen again if the select woman is on board. And Melinda was going to chat with her just to see if that could happen. As it was kind of beneficial to the Board of Finance as well as for our purposes of looking at our own budget. We talked about marketing the Turtle Lot pathways as well as the Mary R. Fisher Reading Academy with stakeholders, discussing how we might go about doing that through marketing and other promotional avenues to try to solicit both tuition-based students as well as retaining our upcoming high schoolers from our own Thompson Middle School. And we have another meeting scheduled for March, I think it's 15th is the next time we meet, which will be right at the beginning of the budget push.
Okay, and I'm gonna turn it over to Superintendent Smith for the enrollment report.
Okay, so we currently have a total of 862 students district-wide. That is down one student from last month. There are 383 students at Mary R. Fisher. That's an increase of 2 students. There are 265 students at Thompson Middle School. That is a reduction of 2 students. And there are currently 213 students at Turtle Lot Memorial High School, and that's a reduction of 1. So the ins and the outs end up making it that we're down 1 student district-wide.
Kindergarten enrollment update, who was going to present that?
That is me.
Uh-huh.
That is me. So what did I do with my little packet? Danielle, you can, or Bryce, call up that PowerPoint. So if you recall, at the beginning of the school year, we started to talk about the change in the regulations for kindergarten enrollment. And we went back to the early childhood team, the preschool teachers, the kindergarten teachers to get their input on how we're going to adopt this new legislation in our district. Next slide, please. So it all spins out of Connecticut Public Act 23-159 that said, starting on July 1st, 2024, students must be fined by September 1st. The legislation also says that a waiver can be submitted to the school principal if a parent has a child that doesn't reach that age between September 1st and December 31st. And so that is something that we needed to consider putting in a waiver. And then the third part of that legislation said that the school team will conduct an assessment of those students to see if that they are developmentally appropriate to come into kindergarten. Now, we know from my experience working with this Board of Education, this board has always supported early childhood education. We have a robust preschool program here. And so we needed to take all of that support that we've had from the board and then also this legislation and try to figure out what we're going to do as far as implementing this in the district. Next slide. So there were some waiver considerations. So a parent has a child, they don't meet that cutoff. What does that mean to the district? Well, some of the challenges that we started to think about was, first of all, the Department of Ed never gave us any kind of list of what type of consistent assessments should be given to the students coming in. So the state passed this legislation, which, by the way, our preschool and our kindergarten teachers agree that moving that date up to September 1st is a good move on the state's part. In Rhode Island, that happened 20 years ago. I was a building principal when that happened. And this similar type of situation fell in place where we were given this directive and then no guidance on how to implement it. And unfortunately, that's happened. The state did release some guidance with some suggestions, but never pinpointed what assessment we needed to use. So that was some of the work that I needed to do with Sam Drobiak and Mary Ellen Jones, who were very helpful, and Principal Prentice, on trying to wrap our heads around how are we going to appropriately assess these children. I tried to organize an area district meeting so that maybe our colleagues in the surrounding districts could all agree on the same assessment. So in case children transferred from one district to another. However, that meeting never really came to fruition, primarily because everybody is kind of doing their own thing, which is really what I was hoping we could avoid. But so we marched along and we decided that we were going to do what's right for Thompson Public Schools. And then there is a fiscal impact, like it or not, we're going to have to be testing students this summer if a parent comes in and puts forth a waiver. The legislation doesn't say that we can put any kind of date restriction on it. So we can't say, well, everybody has to put a waiver in by August 15th, or you will not be assessed. Unfortunately, we're going to have to assess students as they come. We're going to schedule a few set dates for those assessments. However, we're going to also have to make it available that if a parent comes in, submits a waiver, that we are going to have to assess those students. Say they come in September, we may have to do that. And then the other wrinkle is that if they're accepted in an area in Killingly or Putnam, for example, for kindergarten, but the assessment they use is different than our assessment, are we going to be accepting that waiver in Thompson? And so talking through all of these things it's taken a lot of time to kind of untangle what we're going to do here in Thompson. So next slide. So here's our plan. Everybody that wants to enroll their child in kindergarten will follow the regular enrollment procedures. They're going to fill out all that same enrollment paperwork. Parents and guardians of children younger than 5 will sign and submit a waiver form. We'll have that form all ready for them, detailing the assessments and the timelines that we have scheduled assessments for. And the parent will submit that. The first thing is that all children will complete a typical kindergarten screening. We do that for all of our students coming into kindergarten. We also want those students that are submitting for a waiver to also have that assessment. Children will be scheduled for testing on district selected dates. Right now, we're going to try to plug in those dates from probably, I would say, March through the summer. We'll have certain dates that they can sign up for to have their assessment done. The assessment that we decided upon is the Brigant's Early Childhood Assessment. That's a standardized assessment for young children. It has good indicators in there, and the identified inventories that we're really looking at independent skills, self-help skills, those types of things that are going to be a good indicator if the child is developmentally appropriate to come into kindergarten. And then the child must meet that benchmark criteria of the Brigant's and the kindergarten screening to be admitted early to kindergarten. And those are all standardized. They're all done by score. It's not very subjective. So it's a good measure. And we believe that is the fair way to assess the students. I don't know what Putnam's doing. I don't know what Killingly's doing, but we all believe the Brigant's is a good measure, especially when we know this year we have students in kindergarten that their self-help skills are poor. And, you know, even going to the bathroom, they need assistance. And I'll come back to you at budget time and plead with the board to put back those two full-time kindergarten paras, because what I see in the kindergarten classrooms is that students really need help in the bathroom. They really need help just navigating the classroom. So we have children coming into us that are really still not ready. And that's why, as educators, and my background is heavy on early childhood, I will say that I do agree with the September 1st change of the date, because then those children will become more independent and more able to meet the rigor of a kindergarten classroom. You got to remember that kindergarten is not the same when we went to school. It has standards. Children have to come out reading, writing, and doing mathematical equations. And so those standards have really ratcheted up the expectation for children to come in. And that's why the investment that the board made in preschool education here is so important, so that we start to get those children ready. Next slide. So the assessment results will be mailed home to parents, and we will say that your child either met the benchmark or they did not. If your child did not meet the benchmark, a parent or guardian might opt to enroll in our preschool program. Remember that our preschool program is tuition-based, and it would only be allowed to happen if there are open seats available in our preschool. Right now, not all our seats are full in preschool, so there is opportunity that they might be able to funnel into those slots. Parent and guardians of current Mary R. Fisher preschool students who fall short of the age requirement, and I believe it's between 6 and 8 students that fall in that little window. The preschool teachers are having individual meetings with parents to ask them what their options are. Do they want to keep their child in preschool for another year, or do they want to put in a waiver and move their child ahead? We're not going to necessarily need to test those students. Remember, we know a lot about them. So if it's a recommendation made by the preschool teacher that the child move ahead, the child should move ahead. And then once again, the parent who decides to keep their child in preschool would certainly be under that tuition-based program. We're not in a position that we can open up an additional classroom and just make that free and available for families. Unfortunately, we really do need to maintain the tuition-based program that we have here. And it's on a sliding scale. And so, you know, depending on parents' finances, they go to Teague, it's confidential, and they go over their income requirements for those slots. And then finally, there is an appeal process. Obviously, parents get a letter in the mail. They're unhappy with maybe the decision that their child can't move into kindergarten. They may ask for a meeting with Principal Prentice and the early childhood team to go over those results and discuss the option of possibly moving the child forward. We're trying to adhere to scores, so having that face-to-face with parents might help them better understand why we made that decision. Final kindergarten enrollment, however, decision will be made by Principal Prentice because it needs to be at the building level. The waiver in the legislation says it's up to the building principal. So whatever the school-based team decides, we need to adhere to. And yeah.
you're saying, here, I'm going back to your, slide 5, the second part of the
Yeah.
Thompson plan. You're saying that kids that are in our preschool program already.
Yep.
And there's like 5 or 6.
Yep.
That are eligible, that don't meet the age, won't meet the age requirement.
Correct.
They don't have to take that.
The Brigance, we
Brigance.
already have a lot of assessment data on those students, so
Right, but couldn't we get into trouble?
we could ask them to take that assessment.
Well, I'm just putting it out there. We could get into trouble because we're discriminating against.
Okay,
Well, I'm just putting it out there. I'm not saying you need to or not. Don't.
I'll bring that back to the team.
Right,
Because we
because,
didn't
you know,
consider
if
that.
this is, I don't know how this exam works. I mean. It's an oral / written. I mean, they have to write the alphabet. I mean, and
It's more of an inventory that
yeah,
it's a one-on-one assessment.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look it up when I get home, but
And there's different little sections of that assessment, depending, and Samantha and Mary Ellen really went through that assessment, and we're only picking out certain sections, the self-help, which is really important.
okay.
Because we're already gonna have some academic information based on the regular kindergarten screen.
Okay.
But we can take that into consideration and test all of the students. I will tell you, out of those 6, we have probably half of those students whose parents want to keep them in preschool another year. So they're not, many of them are not pushing ahead to enroll their children in kindergarten.
I read an article in the Connecticut magazine, which is published by the public television station, about this very issue. And they had some criteria that, you know, some schools were doing, you know, knowing your alphabet, your home. Some easy mathematical type stuff out of preschool, which is like amazing. Being able to write your name and.
Our kindergarten screen is not, it's not as heavy academic based. Our team really feels that if a student can have good social emotional skills, that they can navigate and take care of themselves in the classroom, the learning will come. So they're really looking at, are they developmentally ready to be in a classroom? And then also have to meet the standards that are set by the state. There's a lot that goes into kindergarten now that we just never had to teach back when I was a kindergarten teacher. And it's kind of the standard movement, overall, when you think about NIAC, we're accredited. That means that we've done a good job of taking those standards and implementing and teaching them in a developmentally appropriate manner. I think our team does a nice job with that. I will bring that back to the team though, so that if those parents that want to push it so it's equitable, that everybody's tested with the same measure, that we can do that.
Right, I'm just bringing it forward, that's all.
Yeah.
And a big issue, obviously, the preschool teachers have worked with these kids, they know.
They know the family.
They know the
yeah.
level, you know, and if
Yeah.
you're not really teaching the academic piece, testing the academic piece of it, you're just testing their readiness,
Mhm.
and obviously those teachers know where they are.
We have a really good team.
Okay, yeah.
I
Thank
have a
you.
question that kind of relates to your NIAC accreditation too.
Mhm.
It's my understanding that right now, the rest time, that's because kids are under 5, is that correct? So will that go away if everybody is now 5, or if there are waivers and some kids are under 4, will those classrooms still have that?
Yeah, that's a good question. We didn't talk about nap time. But they have nap time because of the age. And I think that's a NIAC
Yeah,
requirement. So we'll have to look a little deeper into that.
because if other classrooms are doing academics and things, and some other kids are being held back for nap time because there are kids that are under, how that would work out.
I think it would have to be universal, whatever we decide, but I'm gonna divert back to the kindergarten team to make that decision. But we'll look into that. I mean, I didn't think about the nap time. Yeah.
on average, I know every year is different from year to year, and you mentioned the 6 or 8 kids in our preschool, but on average, out of the 73 kids in kindergarten, how many might not meet that requirement in a given year, percentage wise, 10%, 8%, 20%?
I would say what we have right now is probably between 6 and 8. We'll probably run through that now. There's all sorts of happenings in the state where superintendents are pushing to drop the waiver and just adhere to the September 1st deadline. I don't know if they're going to do that after this year. That could happen, and then we won't have to test anymore. It's just this first implementation year.
Right.
I honestly hope it goes in that direction because then it's clean. But for families that were caught in the middle, I think there are a lot of organizations that are concerned that it's going to cost parents another year of tuition, right? If they keep their child in preschool. And if they don't keep their child in preschool, then what do they do with their child during that year? So that's a problem. Some of them don't have the money to pay the tuition, and so that's another burden on families. We just don't have the capacity to add another classroom to house that group of students that aren't yet ready. And so we talked through it and we felt like this was the better plan. As long as we have seats, that's an option for families. They can come to preschool. If they don't meet the criteria and they don't want to go to our preschool, then it's on the parents to make a decision of where their child goes next. It's unfortunate. Some districts are adding positions, and I just don't think that it's necessary this year, given the amount of children we know currently in our preschool program. I don't know who's going to enroll over the summer, and actually we start enrollment in another month or two. So I'm not sure how many people that's going to affect. I would think this is going to be the baseline year.
Okay.
So that we get a handle on, okay, we had X amount of waivers come in this year, so we can anticipate maybe having that same number the following year. So I'll keep you posted on as the waivers come in during board updates. But we've got to get the information out to the families, and that's kind of why I came to the board tonight to let you know what our plan is, so that when it's out there in the next couple of weeks, you're aware of where we stand. And I didn't do this in isolation. I definitely had a lot of input from the team.
Right. I know Massachusetts and Rhode Island are both September 1st. And
Yep.
being the parent of a September 3rd child, I just can't picture Natalie having been in preschool another year because, yeah, so.
So the year that we did that in Rhode Island, I spent the summer with the team testing kids all summer, and there were only 1 or 2 students that actually hit the criteria to come in early. Both children were reading, and they were just socially, emotionally ready. And so we held those students out. We never gave them an option because our preschool programs were always full. So those parents had to find something on their own. And then it evened out the following year. And that big bump, we didn't have many children in kindergarten that year. The following year, we had full classes. And I can't remember if we added a class or not because we held so many students out. So that is a possibility.
Right.
IEPs, pupil services, there was no mention of any of that in any of this plan.
No, because that would be a team decision.
Okay.
As to where the child should be placed.
Okay.
And so we're not gonna weigh in on that. We're gonna let the PPT make those decisions. So if Chris said, and the team agrees that the child should move on to kindergarten, then the child will move on to kindergarten. It's gonna be a PPT decision.
What if it's a student that's got a waiver in for that IEP? Is that gonna weigh into that decision at all?
We haven't really talked that through, but it's gonna come down to, even like if a student transfers in, I think those kind of cases are gonna be individual. So that it's not gonna be totally equitable because there are gonna be other variables like an IEP that might play into it.
Okay.
it's a sticky wicket because we just didn't get clear guidance from the state. And so, you know, and I don't want to bash them because I do believe that the decision to move the age is a sound one. Except that, you know, having everybody on the same page, using the same assessments and the same timelines would have made all of our lives easier.
So this timeline is in perpetuity right now?
Yeah.
As part of the legislation?
But there is word on the street that they're trying to get it changed for the following year so that the waiver is not an option.
Stupid question, but there's no funding for any of the outside of what this does,
Of course not.
right? Okay.
You know, for people, for districts that might, if they gave us funding, we could open up another preschool class, right? We have space. And we could put those children in that class, but we don't have that luxury of having that wiggle room in our budget. And obviously, we have to compensate our teachers who are gonna come in the summer to do this testing, so there is a fiscal impact on that. So there has been no mention of any funding.
So we'll have to look at that on a budget, obviously, how that costs or whatever we do with it.
We do
Not
have
that-
teachers
not that I'm an
working in the
accountant.
summer, that's a good thing, so maybe they can help us out with some of the testing.
Yeah.
And maybe there won't be that many waiver requests, I just don't know.
Those students that are not. Can't remember your terminology, but are not potty trained, let's just say. There's no, I mean. That could be from an IEP, special needs. I mean, it could be a slew of things, right? I mean, is
So-
it identified?
It could be, but we have children in kindergarten right now who, you know, parents fill out a self-help checklist. And then the child comes into the classroom and they need more support than what was indicated, and they don't have an IEP, right? They're just developmentally not there yet. That's when you start to talk to the classroom teachers and they say that this more than any other year, they see an escalation of those students that haven't met that developmental milestone.
So
And-
does that throw us off where there's only, so many students per. Not administrator, per teacher facilitator? If we had, does that require a one-on-one in certain situations?
It requires a classroom para be in there all day.
Okay,
And remember, because of budget, we had no choice.
Yeah.
And we had to reduce to them having a halftime. But what inevitably happens in the classroom is that kind of thing happens when the para's not there. And so then they're pulling, and the preschool teachers have been great. They've been sharing their paras and they're making it work at the building level. But when you're in those classrooms and you see it happening, like I did during the gingerbread time, you realize that if this is a daily occurrence, then how does the teacher actually teach when she's spending a lot of time in the bath, right?
Right.
So,
okay. Thank you.
But just to comment on the paras, they were in the budget.
they
We
were,
didn't- We took them out, so I don't want the impression that we're anti-para.
we are not. We are definitely not. As a matter of fact, we're understanding the value that paraprofessionals have with young children. When you see when you talk to the teachers and how difficult it's been this year for them. And so that's why you'll see that back in the budget. And that's one of the things that I honestly think we need to hang on to. Because it's not working well. And I know Kristen volunteers in the kindergarten classrooms and she sees it on a daily basis, but, and the teachers aren't complaining, they really are not. It's just that logistically it's hard.
They should be. Complaining to somebody.
They did at the beginning of the year, but they've adjusted themselves to making it work like our teachers always do. But I will say that it's not optimal at all.
Right, oh, we know you are pro para, but the board is too, and
The
the
board,
board did not willingly
that was
take
a
that out
hard
of the
decision.
budget, yes.
That was a hard decision. We had to balance the budget and what else were we going to do? We thought it would work. We didn't know that we were going to have students come in that had these developmental delays that require more support in the classroom. If they had that support, then I think they'd be moving along a little quicker.
And I think understanding that our teachers are making it work, but there's other impacts because of it, right? Our students are losing that learning time with the teacher because the teacher is spending the time in the bathroom.
Right.
Because the teacher's spending time dealing with other things, so at the cost of a para, our students get the benefit of being able to learn.
You know,
That's
Justin,
it.
the comment of making it work, and this is where it's sad, because we've been making it work as a school. And it comes back to bite us every single time it's budget time, because everybody says you made it work.
But I think that's, Tom, that's where my.
Yeah, no,
my statement
I'm
was,
with you.
right, we made it work, but there was a loss
But it's at the detriment of our budgets.
of our.
Every single,
Yeah,
every year.
I think I'll be pretty passionate about it during that budget time when we go to the public, because it is having an impact on learning. And that's the bottom line. That's the grade level that we really need for our students to have a solid foundation. So that they can move on to reading, right? And they're supposed to come out with a solid foundation. That's what the standards have told us, so.
Well, hopefully we have a more receptive Board of Finance, this go around. And, in the next 2 years, and we need a mechanism to educate the public. And that's what the communication subcommittee is working on. Educating the public, getting the word out there, why we need things.
and again, you know, we've, like Melinda says, our teachers, staff, our administrators are very adaptive to budget conditions, but something loses at the end of the day, and we need to make sure that that gets out there as well, like Tom said, right? We make it work, but
Yeah,
At what
but making
cost?
it
Yeah.
work isn't the best thing all the time.
No,
Just because we made it work,
Yeah,
doesn't
but
mean it's,
it's a catch-22. I mean, you don't want it to fail, but you'd love for it to fail, so.
Yeah.
People see the impact, but we can't let it fail.
mm,
And that's where we run into this catch-22 all the time.
it's like you can put the donut on the car, but you can't go over 55 miles an hour.
I was
right?
just gonna say that,
Yeah.
we've got 4 donuts right now,
Right.
and we've had 4 donuts for a while.
You can do it, but you just don't go very far.
Right.
Jess?
We did get our NIAC accreditation, but one of the things we got dinged on, right, was the lack of support of a paraprofessional. We did get dinged on that. We still got accredited, that's not the issue. And then you're in the classrooms where you talk to the teachers, and it's been tough. And I will say that the spirit at Marriott Fisher, they all roll up their sleeves and work together and make it work and figure out how I can share my para with you when you have this problem. And so they've done that, but I just think, goes back to what Justin said, at the end of it all, it's impacting learning. And we're supposed to be setting a sound foundation there in kindergarten, so.
Yeah, and it impacts the staff too, right? If we're sharing paras and paras are getting burnt out, teachers are getting burnt out. There's an impact there.
There is.
And we need to realize that, make sure that when we go through budget, public realizes that.
given the fact that we know where we stand in the pay scale, we're gonna keep losing good teachers. And we don't wanna do that. Okay. Moving on, we have administrative reports, so Dr. Mayo, you can start us out, please.
In December, we welcomed Back to Basics to explain the fire science pathway for student program. The superintendent, together with program staff, came tonight, made a state department of education to review our fire science pathway and answer any questions the state may have, as they're investigating a similar pathway in the state level. Our winter sport team began with our boys and girls basketball season, seeing immediate success, and our track team opening their first meet with some great scores. The winter concert was a huge hit again, led by our music director, Kate Anderson. Some students participated in the ASVAB testing. Dr. Courtney visited Turtle Rock to review the pathways and give his support to the initiatives that are being started in Turtle Rock. The month was wrapped up with our December Pride Day and holiday festivities. The Spirit Week was a tremendous success, and all that participated really showed off.
Anybody have any questions for Dr. Mayo? We'll move on to Ms. Granat.
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. So we ended our year on exciting terms. We had a faculty and staff minute to win it. And it was great success. We also sent it home grade 8 PSATs were sent home this past Friday. A huge thank you to the PTO for providing special treats for all our students before the break. And thank you to all the parents and staff who also have been donating to our numerous fundraisers. We are in a definitely good spot with our PTO funding. Thank you to Mrs. Vincent, who is our 8th grade parent coordinator, and taken the whole 8th grade task on creating some fun events for our grade 8 students. Has been doing a lot, so just a big shout out to her. And we continue to stop and drop meet on a daily to an every other day basis. Very thankful to Mrs. Menard for organizing parents to volunteer in our library, helping students assist in choosing books. And we have a huge month ahead of us. We have our spelling bee that's coming up. And we also are having students, big shout outs to students who are being kind. And we actually have a bulletin board that's up and running for all those who are not being kind. And we announce it on a daily basis. That's our report for today.
Thank you. All right, next, Dr. Jones. He's on Zoom. It has no power, so. Oh. There, okay. He's gonna call in, I think he's on the phone.
He's online.
So, good evening, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, good evening, happy new year, sorry I can't be there in person. Under the umbrella of special education, we have 206 students currently. We have 76 students under section 504. Our total number of students that are outplaced is 18. Of the 18 students that are outplaced, 7 of those students are in the Bradley School Windham County program right inside of Thompson, leaving 11 students that are outplaced in off-site schools. And we're currently using 7 off-site schools at this time, and we're still currently utilizing 5 vehicles to transport those students. Our percentage of students under special education is just under 24%, 23.89 to be exact. Our unified basketball team has its first game this Thursday at Plainfield. We did receive word that we are disproportionate in speech and language of Caucasian students. If we are over 3%, and we're currently at 3.27% of identifying students for speech articulation, to be precise, then we are disproportionate. So I'm currently working on a plan to reduce that number. It's just that typically students in the birth to three realm tend to come in with services needed in speech, and that's primarily why the number is higher than they would like. But we're looking at that, and our open positions still looking to hire some paraprofessionals in the elementary and middle school. Thank you.
Well, we're disproportionate in our.
Demographic, right?
Yep. Yes.
Doesn't make
Yep.
sense.
Of
Yeah.
course, we're disproportionate. Fighting for Caucasians, we don't have diversity.
So, Dr. Jones, can I ask you a question?
Yes, go right ahead.
Who has classified them as Caucasian? The state?
Yes, that is correct.
That's why we have racism.
Well, the parents
Just
actually
call them student.
self-claim the race of a child when they register. Correct. Right.
What does it matter?
What does it matter?
If they're the ones that need the help, then they're the ones that need the help. Doesn't
Right.
matter. Doesn't make any sense.
That's why there's racism. It's a
Thompson
student.
doesn't have the diversity as Hartford, and
Right.
so I don't understand.
No.
we don't.
Can we ignore that?
No, I wish. So
Yeah.
anything over 3% day is flagged, so it has to be reduced. And again, we're at 3.27%. And
So the-
I think that with some of the students that have exited, it's a year in the rear, the data that they look at. And I think that in looking at the students that we have exited this year are probably under that number. But I still have to write an action plan and report that to the state. And I just wanted you, to
Yeah.
all be aware of that.
So.
And this is not directed at you, you know.
No, we know that. So
No.
what would an action plan be for that? And I'm asking in all
Yeah,
seriousness.
sure. Yeah. So typically like something like RTI, before qualifying a student, making sure that we're trying, different interventions, having speech pathologists work with the classroom teacher on different strategies and techniques. But again, as I said earlier, when students come in through birth to 3 and they've already been identified as having a speech deficit and they're already receiving services, we have to take them in and we have to provide the service, right? So there's not much we can do in that case, but in some other areas, I think that, we can look at other opportunities before, qualifying.
Yeah,
Not
not like we're choosing to.
No, it's not easy, but just one of those things that we got to work on. So
This is ridiculous. I don't. State.
It's a hard job and make it harder.
Oh, well. Thank you, Dr.
Stay warm, Doc.
you're welcome. You're welcome.
Sometimes bureaucracy is Looney Tunes.
Exasperating.
Yep. Okay, Mr. Steglitz, you are our.
Hello, everyone. The revised budget, unchanged at 20.6 million. Year-to-date spending, we are at 9.3 million, 45% of it is still lower than last year at this point, where we were at 47%. Year-to-date encumbrances are also at a point that's lower than last year. We're at 10.2 million, or we're just under 50%. In total, we're projecting spending of 19.5 million, 94.4% of the budget, again, lower than where we were at last year at 98.3. Before we all get too excited, it is still early in the year. I'm sure there's some encumbrances. There are some expenses that aren't fully encumbered. So I would expect that to tighten up as we go. But yes, Dr. Jones, we still are in a position where we don't have any departments in a deficit at the moment. Quick budget update. Efforts have been returned by all the directors. Departments have been held. It was a very, very busy day. Thanks for everyone's cooperation. I know those meetings aren't a lot of fun, but everybody really pitched in and we're making some pretty good headway. And we continue to chip away at the new budget format where we're defining all the objects. I left a copy of the year-to-date cafeteria report for you guys at the beginning of the meeting. In summary, the cafeteria is running a small deficit year-to-date of about $7,000. But I do want the board to keep in mind that this is the first year that we are allocating a portion of their health insurance to them. So at this point, that $7,000 deficit is after absorbing $35,000 of their health insurance year-to-date. So for the full year, for last year's budget cycle, they'll ultimately bear $70,000. Free and reduced percentages across the district. Right now in elementary, 43%, middle 46%, and high school 39%.
Kathleen,
Okay, thank you very much.
Matt has a question.
I don't know if I've asked this before, Mr. Steglitz. What was I gonna ask? Oh, so the fact that we're at 94.4%. Is that because we're haven't hired certain people?
That definitely fits into the equation.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
It also, I mean, keep in mind, we had a slightly higher budget than last year. So that's helping us too. And I think it really boils down to this early in the year, you can't expect people to accurately forecast all of their expenses.
Right.
I mean, we just made the halfway point. It will definitely tighten up, but I think what's valuable and what is hopeful is that year to year,
Right.
we're in a slightly better position than we were last year. So hopefully that improvement holds. We'll see.
Okay, thank you. And if I ask next month, forgive me.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. I've just been informed that, Mr. Prentice from the elementary school is on Zoom. And I missed him. So Larry, would you please present your report?
Principal Prentice had a furnace problem. And Mr.
No.
Jones had an electrical. I can. Think so.
Principal Prentice, are you there?
He's got a name.
Houston. Hello.
The laughs are appropriate.
Do you see him there?
He texted me, he said he was online.
Yeah.
Appreciate
I'll give him a minute.
it. Just watch.
I actually found.
Well, okay, Larry, we'll come back to you. Bill Birch, Mr. Birch.
So, the HVAC grant has been submitted. on time. We have an expectation that we'll receive it this year, our fingers crossed. We currently, all of the heating equipment is working as it should. The building's warm all around. That's always the point this time of year. And that is real wood. The recent snowstorm this past weekend, the guys did a pretty good job. They are admittedly a little rusty because we haven't had any snow in a couple of years, really. Unfortunately, though, one of our steeds, I think, is gone for good. One of our trucks has suffered a major something.
But it says snow removal equipment is ready, should it be necessary?
It was. Until it was necessary.
And then it was.
Then it was unnecessary.
But in all fairness, this truck is a 2004. We bought it when it was about 2 years old. And it has served us well and had a tough life.
So does Mr. Stiglitz need to retract what he said about all departments are where they need to be?
Not yet, but maybe next week.
Okay.
So when is when are the services for this truck?
Calling hours, what do we do?
This truck may just disappear quietly.
Why don't I keep it for one of those, the drunk driving where they do the smash thing?
It doesn't move that quickly, Tom. So we're gonna have it looked at, but it looks like it's a major failure and it's gone. Fortunately, the town recently ruled us one of their trucks that is beyond its useful life for their purposes, so.
It's only 17 years old.
We do still have 2 vehicles. And again, we hold on and the weather holds, we will get through the winter and see where we are.
I'm all full of questions tonight.
Mhm.
So we're underutilized on our oil for last year. Is that, well, my question was,
Getting colder.
well, temperature, it's partly to do temperature, but how much is that related to all the upgrades we did in our heating equipment over the last couple of years?
Well, so.
Are they more efficient?
So the upgrades, heating over the last couple of years will replace 2 boilers that we absolutely had.
Right,
I believe they are probably a little more efficient. It mostly has to do with the weather.
Yep. Okay.
And fortunately for next year's budget, we secured a lower price for oil. So that line should be a little bit less for next year. But on the other side of that, we have 2 more boilers that are of the same vintage and quality as the 2 we already replaced.
Right.
And of the other 11 boilers beyond that, they are all way past their useful life. So they are much like the trucks.
Oh, yeah, I understand that. I didn't realize there were that many. Makes sense that there are.
13 boilers. in this
Okay.
building.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay, no problem. Hey. Ms. Burns, how is tech going over there?
Pretty good. In the month of December, we resolved 199 tickets. We're getting ready for, well, in my department, for the FSAC testing to make sure that all the Chromebooks have the most up-to-date, secure browser app. But we are finding that we do have a large number, maybe 20, that are not up to date because they're outdated Chromebooks. So after, I forget, if it's 4 or 5 years, they just don't take updates anymore. So I will be building a large number of Chromebooks into my budget because I'm fearful. I think we can cover that for this year, get by. But I think for next year, we'll need even more just to make sure that all students can appropriately test on the devices. Danette's continuing to work on the federal civil rights data collection report in our state reporting world. We did get the request for a microphone to be set up for these meetings, so we are working on that and we'll hopefully test that out and have it for the next meeting so that you guys can hear up there better. I'm going to be filing for another Pegpedia grant again this year. I'm working with Bryce, hopefully to get some funding just to upgrade a lot of the technology in the auditorium. Like the projector is very outdated, so things of that nature. Repeaters so that we can have more like on-person microphones. I think we only have 4 or 6 right now. And that's about it for me.
Thank you. Were we able to touch base with Larry? Not yet. No,
So-
okay.
Just a quick question on the tech. You said every 5 years, sorry.
Mhm.
Every 5 years, we've got to replace.
It's not
because of-
letting you said.
It won't accept the updates anymore. There's gonna come a point where that's gonna be really big, right?
We have to look at the inventory and I want to sit down with my technicians to figure out, because you're right, because in 1 year, through grant funding, we were able to order, I can't remember how many, but at least 100 Chromebooks, right? So, that's something that I definitely need to sit down and get a better number on so that I'm accurate. What happens though is sometimes, depending when they were produced, they do extend it. But so Dell, it's usually Dell, they do come out with like a spreadsheet of what model you have and then when it ends its life, so that we'll know ahead of time.
Sorry, one more follow-up. So that just to kind of plan that in the head, 5th grade or so is kind of gonna be 4th, 5th grade is gonna be a transition period for Chromebooks
Yeah,
looking forward?
they're pretty good right now. They have the most up to date. So I would probably say like 6th, 7th, 8th middle school students for sure.
Well, and to Justin's point is that if we know 3 years out is gonna be a major hit, it would be wise to build in incremental, 30%, 30%, 30% now, because we will never get a big hit number
Can't do that.
3 years from now.
That's why I asked.
So
Yeah,
we did that last year, remember? And then when we had to make cuts,
We had
we
to-
took all of
yeah, we
those
took those
Chromebooks out.
Right.
I tried, Heather, you don't know this, but I tried to do a Hail Mary and put it in the right to read grant and it got kicked back. So those 45 that I put in that grant got kicked out today, so I gotta.
The only way we can really do that is to not is to come under budget and put it in that, what do you call that? That
Non-lapsing.
excess savings account. And
Yeah.
then
It's just an awful
use
lot of
that
things that would fall
for,
into this.
But if we can put, if we put 900 student, 800 and change.
I
right?
understand what you're saying, Justin, but we really cannot carry money over from year to year.
Yeah, I'm not saying
Yeah.
save. I'm saying actually purchase the
Oh,
Chromebooks that
okay,
year.
all right. I
And
didn't
have a
hear that.
rotating stock so that we don't, that she doesn't run
Mhm.
into, yeah, maybe I have 5 or, oh, next month, 30 of them run out and don't accept updates anymore and then we're stuck.
Hmm.
If we have a rotating stock of Chromebooks, we're gonna be in better shape. I just think it's something.
Well, we were doing that, but
When they come into 5th grade, so it would be every 4 years, and then
Mhm.
again, when they go to the high school, 9th grade, get laptops, Windows laptops, so.
And we were on our way and we were flush with some grant money because of COVID. And so that, we weren't even one-to-one when COVID hit. And so we were all sorts of grant funding streams. We ended up getting to be one-on-one, but I think those that we bought back in that time frame are now the ones aging out.
But the student's education is so dependent on that piece of technology. It's like books back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Now they're dependent on these and we need to make sure that we're rotating that stock, especially if we're gonna run up against hard stops.
end of life dates, yeah.
Well, because then not only it's secure browser now, but then it's how much control are we gonna be able to have over those Chromebooks moving forward if we're not able to update them? So do we violate some other policy because we can't?
Well, the biggest thing is the state assessment. They're all online.
Right.
So
Okay.
Bulk-
You want-
Ballpark, how much does,
One more, okay, one
how much-
more.
how much does a Chromebook cost?
It's
Oh,
about 100,
for each one?
yeah.
Cheap.
It's-
They are cheap. Okay, we have Larry now.
oh, yeah.
Hey.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate your flexibility and patience. Really sorry about that.
problem.
Congratulations to Juliana George and the entire Mary R. Fisher staff for a fantastic winter concert. So proud of Juliana and her first time doing this. I think Mrs. Smith had indicated earlier in the evening she did come down for her annual gingerbread cookies and gingerbread reading, her and Danielle Pedersen. And the kids really get a kick out of it. They really like it. It's really a neat tradition. So thank you so much for coming down. Shout out to Bryce Pratt from the tech department for all of his work. He just goes above and beyond in the technology department. Really proud of him as well. So thank you, Bryce. Tomorrow is back to the 80s day in the elementary school. So it's a celebration for the 80th day in school, and kids are going to dress up in the 80s. So bring your wigs if you're around. The elementary students were visited by Santa Claus a couple times during the week just before winter break. Thank you so much for that. The students really, really loved it. Great job to Kate Anderson and her high school students for caroling in the hallways as they always do. They went from the elementary to the middle school to the high school, and what a really neat pleasure it is for the teachers at the elementary to be able to see their former students. I think they really enjoy that, and I know the students do as well. We had an ugly sweater day on December 15th, although I'm told I always wear ugly sweaters. But our ugly sweater day was the 15th, and it was a hit in the elementary school. And then finally, on January 2nd, we had a PD day that went very, very well. Thank you to all of the presenters. Really appreciate all your hard work. And I think Mrs. Granado had mentioned that our district-wide spelling bee is going to be held on January 23rd with a snow date of January 25th. So look forward to seeing folks out there. And thanks again for your patience and flexibility with my audio problems.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, Larry.
Mr.
Yeah.
Prentice,
I-
Prince,
Yes.
you were going on to the next topic. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, it's the spelling bee. I urge all of you to go because it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it last year. Yep, so go to the spelling bee. Now I'll recognize you.
Principal Prentice,
Yes.
I wish I knew that it was back to the 80s. I would break out some of my concert T-shirts from back then. And
Right.
I apologize for not having my 1982 Z28 anymore, otherwise I would have parked it right out front for you.
Oh, I know you would have. Probably would have played a little bit of Billy Squire too, no doubt.
Absolutely. But good luck with that. That sounds like a great day
Thank you.
for them fun.
It's the seventies for me. But anyway, okay, let's move along. Ms. Giamarnaro.
Happy New Year, everyone. I have a short, update today. We are very fortunate. We have the second interview for the high school life skills position. Mrs. Smith is meeting with our candidate tomorrow at 3:30, so I'm hoping my next report, I can say that we have no teacher openings. We do have four para positions open. We have 2 in the elementary school. We have 2 in the middle school. We are sourcing candidates. They are coming in slowly. And this month is all about Panorama and the climate survey. I have done most of my webinars last week to build the survey and to start working with them this week to build it and start getting everything completed so that I can get some files from Heather to upload. The start date for the survey is January. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Grauer.
I don't have a lot to say. There's a lot of comments out there, right? I don't know if anybody has any questions for me.
What do you do for a scratchy throat?
Stay home.
How is it impacting attendance?
What's that?
How is it impacting attendance?
I think we're seeing around the same percentage out. It's just kind of old.
Rotating?
Yeah. Yeah. COVID's out there, RSV is out there, strep throat's out there, there's some stomach bugs out there, but it's nothing major in any school. It's kind of rolled along at that time of the year.
Okay. Well, thank you. Ms. Spinelli.
Well, we're in the middle of the season. High school basketball is doing pretty well, both boys and girls. Middle school. Well, was not too good today. But we're halfway through the season down there also. The boys may make the playoffs in middle school. Girls, I don't know, might.
That would be good.
Or not, boys. I know, but we're talking about the playoffs.
Yeah.
And we're almost ready to have spring season registration open up, so we know what our numbers are for spring. That's where we're gonna be close for baseball. We're gonna find some bodies to stick out and make it look like we have.
I did hear several high school track players are thinking baseball this
Well,
year.
Cam has been doing his still.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they need to speak to alumni and what it means.
No. If they don't come out, they won't have a team. After last year not having a team.
Yeah.
The kids that want to play are looking desperately to get some of their friends that are not necessarily baseball players.
And that's a sad part there, because when you look back, it's easy to say, I wish I did, and when you're out of school and you really look back, you say, man, those are great years. We all know. It's like, how do you get that through,
Well, don't forget, you also were talking about 450 kids when you were here, and we're at 220.
Yeah,
Makes
we
a
had,
difference.
yeah, and we had
And we're
winning,
still trying to field all the same teams.
we did have winning programs, but there were some years that it was tough. But yeah, I don't know.
There seems to be an upsurge in golf. We're probably gonna have 12 people playing golf, half of which will be girls.
They want to play baseball.
Never gonna swing, Tom. Never gonna
It's
swing.
okay.
Different team.
It's all right. Still hitting the ball.
That's where we're at.
Okay,
Oh,
and Mr. Gila.
Under budget. As of January 8th, 8/11, we're good right now, no major issues, but never know what happens next day, but right now we're good.
All right, then, that wraps up our administrative reports.
Roy's back, Rocky's out. We're good.
Okay, we have some old business tonight. We have, the bathroom, we have a report prepared by Dr. Mayo on what other schools in the area are doing about cell phone usage and vaping. That was emailed to us. Did we all read this? And also Winnie published a letter that was issued from Woodstock Academy.
Yes.
Yeah, did you all read that?
Yeah.
From the associate head of the school. One of the things that they're doing is they're removing the exterior bathroom door. So that things, not the stall doors, the outside door to the bathroom. So that you can, I guess in the boys' room, you can't use the urinal, but, so, big deal. But they would know somebody was vaping in.
You said it, don't use your.
Can't use them.
Hey, you can use all anything you want.
So,
So
it's something to consider. You would see smoke or something billowing out of, or some smell coming out of. Anyway,
So Kathleen. quick
Yes.
question. Does the academy have any rules or regulations that they can do because they are an academy?
I don't know
Not-
the answer to that.
You know what I mean? It's a different jurisdiction, not
It
jurisdiction.
could
but
be,
you know what I
it very well could be.
They're public school, they still.
Yeah, they're just a regional school, right?
No, they're quasi-private because they do cheap tuition.
But
But are they private though?
Right.
They still.
Yeah.
Well, that's. no, you know what?
Because Beth is the disciplinarian and she's constantly suspending people over there for use. So it might not be out there, but
Yeah.
it's happening.
But you're absolutely right. They're private when they want to be and they're public when they want to be as well. So it's always been that way. You know that.
Dr. Mayo, do you want to speak on, the report, because we did sit in on that meeting, and then how things are at the high school right now?
Yeah, and, on December 15th, myself as well as 15 of the principals from East Coast High Schools, we meet monthly. We had a 2.5-hour meeting strictly about vaping, about cell phone use. And I think that there's a misconception. I think, to be honest, to be no disrespect, but I think because of the way we talk about it here out in the open, I think there's a misunderstanding that everyone thinks that we're the only ones that have these rules and have these in place. When Killingly, and Putnam, Woodstock, and Stonington, and Plainfield, and all these other schools have it, but they never ever bring it out into the public. So the kids never hear about it. So I think our kids were under the impression, I think that we hear, our kids were upset because they think, they're not upset. They've come to the realization recently that we're not the school that has this. So I think there's been an understanding, but I think leading up to that, they didn't hear anything coming out. Or so they just assumed that because they don't talk about it in public, that it's not happening, but it is happening. They just don't talk about it in public. We talk about it in public. So I think that that's the biggest thing. I think that there was a call of 15 principals, all of whom are desperate. To be honest with you, and those of you who know me, don't know me, in 9 years as administrator, I buried 7 children. I don't want to bury anyone. So that's my ultimate goal when I'm principal here, is to make sure all my kids are safe. And if you heard 15 principals that were desperate on a phone call and really kind of like, I heard the phrase of, if they have to wait 20 minutes to use the bathroom, I'd rather than wait 20 minutes in the hallway to use the bathroom than to have to bury a child. So that's where we are. It's a national epidemic. It's awful, but unfortunately, it's what education has become. We're doing the best we can. I think a lot of our rules came about with help from teachers. We did it. We talked about that, but we did it as a collaborative effort. And then I also sought for input from students. Some things were adjusted a little bit to appease, some of the issues that they had, with the understanding though that they're 15, 16, 17-year-old kids. We're adults. So ultimately we have to make decisions that they may not like, but ultimately is the best for them and their health and their well-being. You know, I felt as though the meeting went very well. We're gonna get, and to be honest with you, 2 schools have since jumped in on the underback section. We get emails about those as well. But I just think that there's a desperation, and I think it's statewide, actually nationwide, probably. That, you know, with cell phones and with trouble, so.
When he's talking about vaping. It's not just vaping nicotine, just so everybody knows.
Yeah.
It's hitting dab pens.
Yep.
And I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it's an emergency when it's happening.
So how do you detect that?
I'd like to
When
I
thank
can
Doc.
see them a mile away. When they
What-
walk towards me,
Right, but what do you have for a recourse, honestly? And I'm
I
not,
just send them an ambulance. The last person that I got to that was like that had blue lips.
He thought he'd be in a good break. And he was throwing up sideways, and had he not had a staff member out of the bathroom that find us, that they found him, he probably could have gone down and choked on his.
so are these being sold at the convenience store down the road?
I can't tell you that. I know that kids are getting it from other kids.
But where are those kids getting it from?
Thinking of it anyway.
Right, but I mean, you know what I'm
It
saying?
doesn't have to be, no, it's probably not. The stuff from the dab pens is probably not from the store. It's from people dealing.
Getting it illegally.
Right.
Okay, all right, no, I'm just,
And
Yeah,
to
I'll-
piggyback off of Dr. Mayo and Deb Spinelli, speaking to individuals that I have friends that work on the security team at Woodstock Academy and having my daughter go, right straight from my daughter's mouth when I talk with her. It's worse over there, although they have more students, it's relative to the numbers.
where are they getting?
They're getting it illegally, Tommy. How did people get weed when they were younger? They get it illegally. They find people to get it for them, they buy it. Off the black market, you get it anywhere.
This is not, I mean, these are,
Tom,
I'm just saying, these are,
yeah, okay, but you know, wait to be recognized, because Matt had his hand up before you.
okay, go ahead.
When you're,
I was just
Talking about-
replying to,
when you're talking about where they're getting it. The stuff that they're using is not like back in the day when somebody was.
that's what I'm
in the
getting at, this
bathroom
is
for-
serious stuff.
It's way more potent.
And there's a lot of fentanyl around. so
And
we
there's a
have to
lot of
worry about that, 'cause that's.
Spike in the state of Connecticut.
So. That was excellent conversation, things that I didn't know, and thank you for this, Dr. Mayo, because I think. You know, over the last few months, the kids come in and complain, and when they do their update or the student liaisons, they, you know, we hear that side of it and we hear what you have to say, but I think this really kind of. Hearing it from that perspective of the bigger, larger meeting really kind of puts it more in perspective, and it is a necessary thing and a slight inconvenience. As much as I don't like the idea of, you know, restricting something, a basic right like a bathroom, it's obviously if it's that big of a problem, I don't think I, you know, had any kind of a, well, I don't want to say any kind of an idea, but I didn't have an idea of the depth of it. So I think having even this conversation that Tom initiated, I think it's, yeah, it opened my eyes quite a bit. Thank you.
When you take in what other districts are doing, we probably have one of the least restrictive policies, and that's really because the teachers have really all bought into working together and trying to resolve this. So they came up with a good solution, you know, when they're changing classes and the teachers have to move, well, okay, during that few minutes that we have to lock the bathrooms, but
Yep.
I think it's been working. You haven't sent anyone out.
You're looking at me.
And we were looking at Dr. Mayo. I haven't gotten a
I
report.
think the first move of maybe last week of October, November, first week of December.
Yeah, it's been,
Was he first week in December?
there's been a little bit of a lull,
First week in December was the last person. to figure it out.
right?
And when those people go out and they come back, are we doing any type of sorry, that's right. We doing any type of intervention when they come
Yeah.
back to,
So there's a suspension piece, and we're trying to get we had a previous health teacher who was trained. So when they came back, he has left the district, so we're in the process right now of getting our new health trained, that same process, so he can do it. So it's something the state recommends as far as like, almost like a mini DARE program back in the day. Having said that, I don't know how well, it worked last year, because we did have a couple of repeat offenders, after that program, but I mean, the state. But yeah, that's.
In the meetings that you had with the other principals. Their parent involvement or custodial, where's the guardians, where do they play in this?
I've taken a handful of vapes in which I've had to ask me if they can have them.
You're kidding.
So are we,
I have kids tell me that it's loud at home. And my conversation with them is it's not allowed at school.
they're under 18?
Yeah.
So it's illegal in general?
Yes. Of course it is.
So I will tell you this, but Putnam has, they have given tickets if they catch them, okay? Having said that, though, and I don't mean any disrespect, he's here, but we would have to deal with Troop D. I had a young man, actually, he was hitting, and I had to try to talk the Troop D and the police officer into issuing a citation. So they got other things going on, they're not gonna come here to do that. But that's what Putnam is at least doing, is at least they're issuing tickets to kids if they catch them and bringing them before, I think, before JRB.
Yeah, so they come before JRB. And. deal with them on that.
I guess, is there any reason?
Well, in going off of yours, is there any then repercussion for the parents that are essentially allowing and providing for it?
No.
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 So it's not being reported?
Well, obviously.
I mean,
Well, yeah, we report it.
Yes.
but it's,
It's,
okay.
And if that's the home environment the students are coming from and it's accepted there, right?
Right,
Still not accepted at school.
right.
And that's the issue. I will say though, not that I'm gonna find some wood. I honestly think that the interventions you put in play are working. I do agree, we do need somebody to do that intake intervention. We did have someone last year doing that, where they would have to sit through a series of modules around the health considerations around vaping, because it is education. But as Dr. Jones and I talked about before the Christmas break, some of the students are really addicted to the vaping, and so trying to get that cessation kind of program in place so that they can stop doing that is something we need to do a little bit more research on.
The thing is, they have to want to, they don't want to.
Correct.
Just looking for another way to get into the bathroom and get there. It's not everybody, it's a small group of kids, but it's the same group of kids. The ones who argue about bathroom time are those kids who are looking to go there. Most of the kids have adapted and they don't have a problem with it.
I just, the difference between the drugs back in the day, the pot, the coke, the whatever it was, and I say back in the day, I'm really not that old, whatever. Today, one mishit of fentanyl, and you're done, right? And somebody doesn't see it in a bathroom, or somebody doesn't see it because you're hiding in a corner, and it's seconds and you're done. And any intervention, I'm sorry.
We talk about that daily. It's very scary.
Sorry. It's sad because it's almost a situation where we have probably dodged a bullet here. And not wrong term. We have dodged a situation. And you guys witnessed something that we would have been a headline in the news. Had you not intervened when you did. So I'm just saying, it's probably not a matter of if, it's probably a matter of when.
You're right. And they're just talking about one. There's
Right,
been other
right, one.
instances,
Right.
But there's others that have happened before, even last year.
Well, and build on, what Tom said, we've dodged a bullet with fentanyl as an invisible bullet. You're not gonna see it coming. You're only gonna see it when it's already gone through you. I mean, I've seen it in the EMS world where it doesn't take much.
Hi, I'm sorry. Can I interject on this, please? This is Brooke Boyd speaking. I also just wanted to add that a lot of these vapes and things are smokeless and odorless. So even schools that are like taking doors off, it's hard to detect. And then the kids also know where to put it, so we can't find it. So all of that stuff is just making catching this a lot more difficult.
That's our, our DCBA.
Okay. Any more questions on the matter? And then I'm gonna wrap
To
this up.
follow up on the other track of your mentioning that with the phones, which is also an addiction. You know, probably just as much of an addiction, although not as lethal. What are we moving towards? Are we moving towards
hold
anything?
with the pockets. After talking to the staff, I feel like the pockets are working. We're looking at a possible online pass system that we're looking at getting, which was mentioned in the Woodstock press release. But we're now the last school not using security. Having said that, though, we feel like that might help us. So, as that may sound, is that we're gonna be able to, kind of figure out who goes out when and make sure people aren't going out together. So that'll eliminate the phone, the issue that we have had with the phone. So we think that'll be fine. We'll hold with the staff, we'll hold with the pockets right now, and just kind of ride that out.
Thank you.
Sorry, Ken.
One more. and then
I know, I'm sorry.
wrapping this up.
Are we doing anything in the middle school in terms of education and intervention so that by the time they get to the high school, they don't even want to look at a vape?
So last year, our grade 6 students were our grade 5 students, and they had DEAR program. And now our grade 5 had DEAR program, so we started implementing that back. So,
Is it 5, 6, 7, 8?
so right now, it's a 1-year program. We started it last year. So our 7th and 8th grade, as we stand right now, have not had the DEAR program. But our grades 5 and 6. 5 is going through it right now, and 6 has had the training, and they have graduated from the program. Does that make sense? So
Yeah, it makes sense. What I feel that,
yeah,
I
but we
feel that it should be
also-
reinforced.
also have done education with the kids, and they do have the education in health, that they are getting education of vaping and types of drugs, but we instituted DEAR back in the system.
Thank you.
The kids that we have at the high school were in the DEAR program before, when you had them. So they've had it, and they also have health now also. And that's part of the curriculum.
Okay. Thank you for putting this together. It puts it in perspective what we're doing versus what other serving officers are doing. I appreciate that. Okay, now to the website at blocking.
Yeah, so I guess we received a report that maybe our filters are a little bit too restrictive. So we touched base with Mrs. Oulette, who was going to put something up on her Google Classroom for the students, just to let them know if they ever come across anything that's being blocked, they can report it. We'll determine whether it's safe or appropriate, and then we can unblock it. It's just a quick, easy process. The key is we just need to be aware of that. Because we do have filtering for home, we have double filtering here for school, we have 2 different programs. And it could be a matter of maybe we need to just loosen up the reins on a certain, like a specific category. Because it also goes by like gambling and drinking and, drugs and things like that. So if you're doing research papers on those topics, that's when a lot of times the teachers will come to us and ask for temporarily, loosen the reins up a little bit, which we do. So, but we did communicate with students. They can let their teachers know, they can put in a ticket with us, and we'll unblock it if it's appropriate.
Okay.
Kathleen.
Yep.
Is there a time where the public access turns off? Like, we've been up here a couple of times for meetings. And you have internet, and then at like 7 o'clock,
Bump you off,
yeah.
yeah.
is-
It-
or-
I don't know if it's because you've been on it for like a prolonged period of time, but,
Like, I know it happened with our attorney when we were up here for negotiations.
okay.
And then we had to do a hotspot. And
I think we also set up a time limit. We're live streaming sporting events too. When Jeff was live streaming, he would have better access, so we could probably disable that now.
Okay.
Oh, he's still streaming.
Yeah, he's still streaming.
Okay,
Well,
I don't know if it's
Just
an
left.
issue or. Okay.
yeah, it just seemed like it was like 7 o'clock. And it,
Okay.
you know, and then you had to like, wait a minute.
I
we
can
were
look
just-
into that.
yeah.
I think more if it's like number of hours that you're.
Yeah, it happened to him more than once, and it
Yeah.
was around that time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. We're on to new business now, the 24-25 school calendar, which we've got.
So there's a couple of edits, Kathleen, that Danielle just picked up, not on the calendar side itself, but on the left-hand side. Under full professional development days, that shouldn't say 2/1, it should say 2/19, because that's the day after the February break, that's the PD day. Under holiday recess, December 23rd, it should say to January 1st. We made an adjustment on that PD day. And then at the bottom where it says snow days will be scheduled, it should be starting on June 16th, because we run right to the 13th. And how we built the calendar is that we plugged in the second Friday of graduation first, and then we backed up the 181 days. The PD days have been strategically placed. We took into consideration the EastCon regional calendar. 2 of those dates match up with some PD that they are going to be offering, October 15th and March 7th. We don't know what those offerings are, but we wanted to make sure that we had PD days lined up. The other consideration was our Right to Read grant requires teachers to do a really deep data dive after the initial assessments are done in reading K3. So that October 15th day will also be key for them. They also have to look at that data mid-year, so the 19th date will be important. And then we moved the January 2nd date to May, because they have to do an end of the year overview of the assessment data. And honestly, that kind of holds true with a lot of our assessments, especially our interim assessments that we are using to monitor our progress for us being an Alliance/Opportunity District. So the dates were, the PD days were strategically placed there. This has been gone over by the union. I've also run it by the curriculum leaders to make sure the dates are falling, so when they have to do assessments and regroup with teachers. So these dates, a lot of hands went into putting the calendar together.
What's not on here is our Board of Ed meetings, my triangles.
Oh, thank you. You're right.
The orange triangles on there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well.
We don't meet, we have no
I'll do that
meetings.
tomorrow.
So with those edits, yep.
First day of school too, is the 28th, but it shows the 27th is a teachers meeting, so it's a half a day too.
It's a half a day for teachers,
I
that's
see.
by contract. The full PD day is on the 26th. And the holiday breaks line up with the EastCon calendar, which might make it easier for teachers who have children and they live somewhere else. It might be more helpful.
Kathleen? I'll make the motion to accept the calendar with the corrections that were listed. I'll second it.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the 24-25 school calendar. Any discussion? We discussed it, okay. All in favor of accepting the calendar, say aye.
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 Any opposition, say no. Hearing any abstentions? Hearing none, the calendar for 2024-25 passes unanimously. Okay, the next item under new business is to reappoint the Board of Ed recording secretary. I'll accept the motion from the floor.
Make the motion, Kathleen.
Okay,
Second that.
Matt seconds that. Any discussion? No? Okay, then I will put that motion to the floor for a vote. All in favor of reappointing our Board of Ed recording secretary? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, say no. Hearing none.
Congratulations.
Speech.
Motion passed. Any correspondence? I have none. All right. Again, last chance, last call on citizens' comments for this meeting. Any from the floor here or Zoom audience? Any board comments? Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, here we go. And we'll see you.